This is the number one reason most people fail and why you aren't successful right now. Hey, it's Don here. Today we're going to talk about the number one reason why you aren't succeeding and why most people honestly and sincerely fail. One of the biggest factors in being successful anywhere is understanding how a business works. Actually treating what you are doing right now to make money as an actual business. And the number one thing every business looks at every single day of their lives are the numbers, the mathematical numbers that run and rule your business. If you don't know the numbers, how are you going to know an ROI, return on your investment? There are so many other factors out there. Now, this one specific topic, this topic right here, is one that I've probably had 5,000 questions on in the last 3 or 4 years I've been doing this. It's the number one inundated question I get. Why am I not succeeding? Why am I failing? Why can't I get this going? Now, most of the time when I'm talking to somebody who is having some major problems, I ask some very specific questions to see what their business skill set level is at. If they can't answer me their profit margin for the last week or day or month, they probably aren't tracking their items very well. If they can't account for what they spent in a given week or a given day in purchasing inventory, they're not tracking their stuff right. Far too many people just assume you're just going out there and buying stuff and listing it, and they're not really thinking about the bigger picture, what's involved to get this to be successful. That's always what seems to be the case with the majority of people that reach out to me. They're not treating it as a business. They can't quote numbers. They don't know how much investment they have. They don't know shipping supplies or any of these other aspects. They can't give me any of that information. To be truly, honestly, and sincerely successful in this business as reselling or any business across there, you've got to know your numbers. I know where every single dime I've ever spent on my business went to. It's all marked down in spreadsheets. It's all tracked. It's all cross-referenced. Everything. So if I need to spew out a number or figure out why something isn't going in my direction, why I'm losing money, I can instantly go to where that problem is by looking at the math, the numbers, and fix it. Far too many people as well don't have a clue on that aspect of it. Now, you don't have to get into this already having all that vast amount of experience, but you've got to start off correctly. You've got to track everything. Write it all down in a spreadsheet by hand if you're not familiar with how to use, say, Excel or Google Docs or something like that. You have to track it all from the start to finish. I ask people, what was your numbers year over last? Most people don't even know what that means. Year over last means that you increase over last year's numbers to this year. If you're not tracking that and you're going in the wrong direction, you made less this year than the year before and less the year before that, and so on and so on and so on. If you're not keeping track and comparing, you can't fix the issues either. That's honestly the number one reason why most people fail. They don't have a clue on the overall aspect viability of their business. Now, it's not just the amount of money you're putting in, it's the amount of time. Your time is valuable. If you worked for somebody else, you're putting in all that time, you're getting something back out of it. You're getting a salary. So if you're investing time and wasting time into things that aren't going to be productive for your business, again, that goes back to tracking it. That goes back to knowing your numbers. Now, I have a set amount of money, of revenue, one of my employees or me myself needs to produce per hour of me working. There's a set amount of dollar-wise you should have what your time is worth. That should be equated into your business as well. As a general manager and a regional manager of brick and mortars, restaurants, big box and things like that, there's 3 controllables that every manager on the planet is responsible for. Employment, your labor hours are always number 1. Your inventory, your items that you're selling, producing, processing, or whatever the case may be that makes you the money is number 2. And the last one is number 3, which is your supplies and all of that aspect. Now, there's one more if it's your own business, which is utilities and actual overhead for where you're running your business at. Those are the top 4 figures that cover pretty much all of your business. You can list advertising and all that kind of stuff into sales itself, but it all comes down to those key aspects of it. When you track everything on a piece of paper, you can categorize very specific things in one column versus another one. Going over all of those expenses, you can lower your costs. When you lower your costs, you increase your profit. So if you can cut off, say, $40 in electricity or $30 in gas that you're wasting by not planning out your trips each month, that adds up at the end of the year. You find a half a dozen things that do that in a month, you're going to be saving yourself an immense amount of money. Again, most people, when they're first starting off into this, they're blowing money on expenses, they're wasting time on things, they're not being methodical, and you're not thinking of it as a business structure. You're just randomly going around and doing things. There's a reason why corporate America has succeeded, why big business succeeded. They've spent millions, billions of dollars investigating what works, what doesn't work. They've spent billions of hours of man hours trying to figure it out as well for hundreds of years. So mimicking the structure of an actual business, a corporation or something along that line, has made me far more successful than most everybody out there who isn't doing that. That's a big, huge factor why I'm successful. I'm not looking at all the other aspects. I'm not comparing my business to somebody else. I'm digging into my own business and knowing my numbers, knowing where I'm deficient in something and fixing that issue. If you haven't a clue on where your money's going on any given day or any given month, you've got a big, huge, major problem with your business. It's not a business. You're not managing it. You're just running your day-to-day and hoping everything works out fine at the end. That's just not productive, and it's going to sink you. It's a morale booster as well when you can control things, when you can look at your whole business that you're running and figure ways to save yourself money. I've pointed out issues to people on many occasions, and they've been able to save hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month in cutting off needless expenses and time that they don't need. Again, treat it like a business. I have a schedule. I have routes that I go if I'm going to pick up stuff or source from very specific people. Why do I do that? Because it saves me time, money, energy, everything across the board. I look at my year over last to see if I'm going down in certain categories where I shouldn't be. I compare all those numbers. Now, I don't just use eBay's numbers because most of the numbers that you see in Hub are tied to only the top 2 categories that you are in. It's not an overall picture for the most part, depending on where you're looking at. So I track everything on my own behalf. You can track it by category items, and figure out which categories are hurting you. Which categories aren't making you any money? Which categories do you have the highest returns on? I've talked about this before. I have a pros and cons sheet for everything that we do. You get a speedball session going where you throw some ideas off, whether it's just you or somebody else working with you, and you figure out where you're deficient in. You figure out what's hurting you in a specific thing, your cons for that area. Clothing, for an example, is a huge one that I went over and just looked at and said it's just not feasible. It's not practical. I can't get good merchandise around here. The return rate is much higher. The amount of time invested into that is much higher. And the profit margins are much lower. My ROI on clothing was bad in this area because there's no good clothing being donated. The estate sales as well aren't so good on clothing. A lot of it's picked through by other folks who have already contacted or have deals with a lot of the companies that run sales. So all these factors, again, are why I sell certain items and don't sell certain items. But I've looked at those factors specifically from a business aspect, nothing else. If you're not running it this way, it's not really a business in my book. You know, I've got insurance for it. I track everything. There's a spreadsheet for everything. There's a spreadsheet that breaks down my fees. I can compare them to what eBay has. You know, there's all sorts of different aspects of why treating it like a full-fledged business is the #1 aspect that will get you success. These are all proven methods. They've been scientifically studied. They work. They give me results when I do them. So once you get into this mode where you're doing everything on a business aspect, you're tracking it all, you know your numbers, things are going to improve immensely, and they can improve quickly once you get the grasp of what you are doing. as a new person into this, people make mistakes on shipping weights. They make mistakes on packing material. They make mistakes on actual pricing things. You don't track things. Their ROI may be terrible. You may be listing items that won't give you any profit when you figure in your cost, labor, shipping, and all that other things. Those are all things you have to learn. But again, if you're not tracking them, you're not studying the numbers, how are you going to figure out that that's actually going on in the first place to even be able to begin to fix it? But anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
Tootsie Roll, I think I'm in love with you. Whatever it is, I think